Hello everyone. I know that I said I'd try and not leave it another 6 months between episodes, but sorry. First off, we have a Rogue Trader era Landspeeder from 1988, which was sent in by Patrick. I won't lie, this is a model I was putting off finishing for quite a while, since it is very, very wonky. It's from an era where holy metal models did not fit together all that well, even worse than usual for metal models. And when you combine that with the fact that it's on a flight stand, it's a little nerve-wracking to handle. But I finally knuckled down and finished it, and I'm really glad I did, since I absolutely love this thing now. I especially love how tiny and cramped the little marines on it are. Adorable. The rocket pod on top means that it will be run as a Typhoon, although that part actually comes from a Forge World Leviathan Dreadnought, since the original weapon was missing, and that was the only thing from my bits box that looked remotely fitting. It can be easily removed, so if I ever do pick up an original weapon for it, I can swap them out without too much trouble. Next, we have one of the later Rogue Trader Orcs, sent in by a person who didn't want to be named. Rather than just being a single slab of metal, his arms and gun were separate plastic pieces. Despite going with my own take on Evil Sons, I went with a bright pink mohawk since that just felt right, finally making all the vibrant pink paints we've bought actually pay off. And the backplate is based on a thing from the RT13 box that I may or may not be interpreting correctly. There are not many pixels in this JPEG. It's a very rudimentary version of the Evil Sun's face regardless, and I love it. The same person also sent in this pointy-headed Rogue Trader Orc. He's from a little earlier and is just a single piece of metal. You might notice in these orcs I've been painting the skin more vibrantly than I usually do. This was mostly because I wanted to capture a bit of the vibrancy of Rogue Trader era orc tones, so the moot green had to come out. And now I am left really wishing I'd done this skin tone for my Grot Rebellion and left with a lingering thought that I could just repaint them like this. But I am not repainting over 100 models, so I guess I'll just have to live with that now. Still on the orc front, we have a couple of bases of Snotlings along with a shock attack gun mech. We were sent in quite a lot of Snotlings, and given the various duplicates I don't know exactly who sent what, so I'll simply thank everyone who sent us some. Those being Lord Hedgepig, Rob, and again the person with no name. Also, the shock attack gun mech was given to us by Rich, although that technically wasn't a PO box thing. But since it's got a Snotling on the base and I painted all these as one set, it felt wrong not to include it. Anyway, the Snotlings would traditionally be on square 40mm bases and are supposed to have 9 of them on there, but personally I don't like mixing square and round bases, and 9 would have made them horrible to paint around, so here we are. Really enjoy the variation on these sculpts. Just the goofiest of little goobers. They're amazing. The shock attack gun mech took me quite a while to paint as he's got so many little details going on that gun, and although he's on a 40mm base here, he was originally supposed to go on a 25mm one. And that's terrifying. I imagine not a game went by without him getting knocked over, because it will not shock you to learn, this metal model is quite top heavy. One of my favourite little details I added here is the end of his hammer, where I painted some tiny orc runes. If you're wondering what they say ow. Oh, and if you were curious, I have painted up an era-appropriate runt herd to complete this little squad too. This next mini was sent in by Phil and Connor, and well, it's a Kornate Marine. Get it? Officially known as Colonel Korn, this is a 3D print sculpted by Big Mr. Tong, and I don't mind saying that I think I'm pretty good at painting Korn. I have no idea if that ability will ever come in useful again, but I'll take it. Funnily enough, it's basically just the same recipe as my Lamenters use, Avalon Sunset with a Reichland Flesh Shade wash with a highlight of Dawn Yellow, just the highlight is done with a dry brush rather than an edge highlight. I tell you this in the highly likely case that you too need to paint some Korn. Finally, we have some more stuff for my Lamenters, since I've been making a concerted effort to try and get them in a vaguely finished state. Firstly, a Terminator with Chain Fist from Alex. This particular one is one of the RTB-9 Terminators from 1989, and it's remarkable how all that's really happened to Terminators since this point is that they've gotten bigger. They pretty much nailed the design here and have barely changed. Was a little worried how the stripy veteran stripe would look on a segmented helmet, but I think it came out pretty well. Also from Alex, and also from 1989, is a Cyclone missile launcher Terminator. When played in the modern game, he'll count as having a power fist. The older versions did just have the little scanner doohickey in their hand. I do rather like how compact the missile pod on this guy is. The biggest nightmare on these Terminators was the Lamenter's iconography on the pauldron, not because Lamenter's iconography is always a nightmare, but because despite the rest of the Mini looking pretty damn good for this era, the shoulder pads and how asymmetrical they are really do let you know how old these Terminators are. I think I did okay considering. One last Lamenter that also technically didn't come in the PO box but was still something we were given, so I feel it counts, is Brother Leech, sent to us by Matthew. This guy is a proud member of the potato-faced rogue trader gang. He's an interesting one since I don't think I've got another Marine from this time period that have got chains around his arm, and neither do I have one that had a horned skull on the shoulder pad. Whilst it is a beast skull rather than a horned human skull, it does give him a bit of a librarian vibe. A librarian with a plasma gun. But it's just another example of iconography being thrown around with wild abandon at this point. And there we go. That is the stuff that you have sent in that I have painted in the last 6-ish months. As an apology for how long it's been since the last episode, I have one extra mini to share. Here is a Primaris Space Marine sent in by Nicolay15 that my 5-year-old niece painted since she wanted to try painting a mini. She seemed to really like the Rogue Hobbies dark hot pink and was very enamoured with the grass tufts. Anyway, as ever, thank you so much to everyone who sent something in that was featured here today. It is very much appreciated. And I shall see you in an amount of months for another episode. Goodbye.